We'll introduce you to our 1990 Toys for Tots campaign. We'll discuss Cablevision's commitment to education, take to the air in a Cablevision bucket truck, and answer your letters from the manager's mailbag. Cable Talk, Friday nights at 7:30, only on Channel 12.
The 1990 High School Football Game of the Week, brought to you by Carl Chevrolet and Geo. The deal you want, the service you need.
Well, tomorrow, moviegoers nationwide will be able to see, yes, the Return of Superfly. It is the sequel to the 1972 movie, Superfly, and we have the producer and the director with us today, Sig Shore. And in fact, we were talking before the program, Sig was the very first guest on the Fairfield Exchange back in 1982. Nice having you here.
I wondered what I did to bomb out that nobody ever had me back.
For 8 years.
We kept waiting for the return of Superfly, Sig, and it took all that time.
And we have it.
Thank goodness it's back.
Yes.
This is a much different movie than the original, isn't it?
Well, it's much different. Yes, I guess you could say it's much different, but it's an extension of the original story.
Set us up. Take us back to the original Superfly for those people that have forgotten, because it's been quite a long time, 18 years.
Superfly was a story about a drug dealer who was a young victim of what I used to call hereditary poverty. These kids would grow up on the street, and by the time they were 14, they would have a felonious record that was so long that they were precluded from most of the avenues of life that everybody else enjoys. And then when they finally get to be about 20, and they realize what the American dream really is, and that they're shut out of it, then they really get serious about taking the crime to make some money so that they can set themselves up in mainstream America. And this was a story about a drug dealer. And from the very first frame of the film, he wanted out of the drug business, but he wanted to make that score so that he could set himself up into a normal life.
He wanted to get rich by selling drugs, and then he would turn legitimate.
Right. In those days, there'd be pimps, there'd be drug dealers, numbers runners. There were all sorts of crimes that they were into. And what was interesting about Superfly to me was the way the competition to become the hustler on the street was done in the black ghetto. In most other ghettos, the guy who becomes the gang leader is the guy who's least reluctant to use a gun or is the toughest. But in the black ghetto, you did it with style. The guy who had the best-looking clothes, the best-looking girlfriends, the best-looking car, he became the hustler. So this competition of style was very fascinating, and all these elements worked in this little film that I made, and I had no idea it would ever be the success that it turned out to be.
When you talk about a little film, it was a little film financially when you made it. How much did it cost?
Less than $500,000.
Less than $500,000.
Right.
You can't buy videos for that these days, you know?
But it brought in, what, 30 million?
30 million at the box office. The album must have brought in over 30 million, as I remember.
It was a different era, though. Drugs were not thought of in the same way in 1972 that they are today. Cocaine and marijuana and so forth.
Cocaine was a white man's, expensive white man's drug. It was a luxury drug. And it wasn't thought of, as it turned out, 10 years later to be, you know.
All right, the change in time that we see now in the 90s is certainly reflected in this movie, because Priest, the principal character, comes back and really reverses his role, doesn't he?
Right. Well, he got out. That was the story of the original Superfly. He did get out of the life. Now he'd been living in Paris all these years, and he returns to America, and it's still just the same. He still has the same problems.
Now, he's a character who uses a little bit of violence, but not as much as one would think. When you think of these movies, you think of a lot of shooting, a lot of blood and gore and so forth, but the original didn't have that much.
The original, there was not one gunshot fired in the original movie.
Few shots in this one.
There are in this, yes. Well, times have changed.
Yeah.
There are far more guns around than there were then. But there wasn't one gunshot fired in the original film. As a matter of fact, there are only 2 people that get killed in the film. One got hit by an automobile. So it was no violence of any. It was just heavy drama.
It is somewhat controversial in the fact that critics said that it fell into the stereotypic roles. I mean, you stuck with the way things, at least the stereotypes, portrayed people. Have you changed with this new movie?
Well, if you're doing a story about a drug dealer, a hustler in 1972, that's what hustlers look like. He would have to be stereotypical. If he weren't, he wouldn't be the hustler. But there were a lot of negative things said because when I tried to raise the money, the reason that the picture cost so little was anybody that would read my script and see that it had a drug dealer as a hero thought I was insane.
That's it, folks.
Mm-hmm.
You see? That's as far as that would go. So I don't think Superfly can be categorized like a lot of other films. The reviews were brilliant. I mean, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and some of the Los Angeles Times were all rave reviews for the film.
Well, you've got a star in this one that everybody will recognize who watches soaps.
That's correct. He's a soap star by the name of Nathan Perdee, and he's been on The Young and the Restless for about 5 years now.
And I heard that he always wanted to play priest.
Yes. When I first met him, he told me that story.
So tomorrow's a big day.
Yes.
That's
Tomorrow's
very
the big day, and parts of it have, in fact, been shot in our area, in Stamford.
Oh, yes. I shot a lot of it in Stamford. The mayor was very generous with me. He let me use many of the city's facilities. And
George Jepson and sundry brother, right?
Yeah. Well, but the old municipal office building, I turned it into a studio.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful.
We'll have to look tomorrow. The Return of Superfly. Sig Shore, we want to thank you for joining us. And we'll have to make sure it's not another 8 years that go by before you come to the program again.
Thank you.
Glad you're still doing well.
And thanks for having me.
And we'll be back in a minute.
Thursdays on A&E.